Hello and welcome everyone to the Movement Made Better podcast. We got Coach Ray with us coming off his meet from this past weekend. Congratulations. You killed it, bro.
Thank
Way
you.
to go.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun, man. It was fun. I forgot how much I actually enjoy competing.
What were the weights that you hit on all three lifts then?
My squat was 601.8, my bench press was 425.5, and my deadlift was 656.8.
Very nice, man. I gotta be honest, I think Neal and I were both shocked. You weighed in at 193.
That's the lightest I've been in like a decade. Like for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. When you answered, because I think it was Marcel asked you what your weight was, I think, or somebody on social media asked you.
Oh, yeah.
And when you put your weight in, I was like, what? I was like, get the out of here. I was like, no way.
It was interesting to cut down that low. It was a little tough.
What was the process that week? Like, what did you have to do?
So my shit started on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I basically started by drinking 2 gallons of water per day. And then once I got to Wednesday, I drank about 2.5 to 3 gallons. Going to the bathroom I swear to God, dude, 20 minutes.
Jeez.
Every 20 minutes. It pissed me off. But when I woke up on Thursday morning, I was 197.5.
Okay.
And so
Damn.
basically what I did from there is I went to pick up all my gear, walked on the treadmill for an hour to sweat a little bit. My weight got down to like 195. And then from there, I dehydrated a slight bit more, but I didn't do much with it. So I basically went down to 193, doing some sauna work, a little bit of sauna work. And then I had electrolytes a little bit just to kind of give my body what it needed because I had that room to like get a little something in.
Mhm.
That's all that was. And so when I went to weigh in, I was 193 when I weighed in that morning.
Dominated that weight class.
Yeah, it was. I think I got lucky, man. I was fortunate with my process of refeeding. I think that's what it was. If I didn't refeed correctly, I was basically drinking electrolytes all damn day. The first meal I had was a big ass meal. I posted it on my story. It was basically a gigantic 4-egg omelet
Okay.
and a big ass plate of hash browns. Like
Nice.
that was my first meal. And then after that, had a slice of cake. First time in like 3 months.
Oh,
Had a cake, a little bit of protein, and then I ate again. Had like about 1.5 pounds of barbecue, like around 5 or 6, and that was it to a competition.
how long did you have between lifts?
So kind of hard to say because they were going through the flights pretty fast.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, the lifting started at 9. We were leaving by 4.
Okay.
So
okay.
and all the flights were pretty full. So for flight A, that had, I think it was 13 lifters. Sorry, 15. I believe it was 15 lifters. To go through 3 attempts, it took roughly about 25 to 30 minutes.
Oh, damn.
So once one was done, the next one
Boom.
went.
They weren't wasting any time.
Yeah.
They were on it. And actually, I think the schedule was perfect. They gave us a little bit of time in between each event.
Okay.
So it wasn't like you squat, then you immediately go on the bench.
Yeah.
But with how the flights and everything were organized, people had plenty of time to kind of rest, eat a little bit, chill out before their next event.
Between lifts, like, what was your mindset? Like, what did you do?
Honestly, man, I was focused. It's just nobody was there. Nobody existed. To me, it felt like a day. It's like a regular day in the gym in the terms of, what I was feeling. But I will say the very first lift, my heart was pounding.
I bet.
Yeah.
That was the first time,
First time, yeah.
8 years. So
Yeah, shaking a little bit.
I was pent up. I was like kind of anxious. You know what I mean? So going into it from there was a cakewalk. I just need to get that first lift out of the way. Once I got it done, I was good to go. But my mindset was just focusing on cueing, making sure, I'm bracing super hard, kind of going through my own checklist. And then once I got under the bar, I didn't think about anything. The only thing I thought about was basically brace as hard as you can, go for it. And that was it.
They'll clear the mechanism, which is hard to do for some people,
Yeah.
Sure.
It really is.
Any kind of competition.
right? You want to try to block everything out, but it's hard for some people to do that.
Yeah. It was tough. And like, I did find that I wasn't nervous going into it. I was hella excited. I'm like, all right, like it's about that time. Let's see if the training and hard work that I put in paid off. Did. But I was never at any point scared
Yeah.
during the meet, nor was I nervous about how my body felt. Everything actually felt really, really good that day. I don't believe there's anything I could have did to perform any better than I did.
That's awesome.
Well, and you made it injury free.
Yes. That was like
key.
Yeah.
the biggest goal, man. Like The only one that actually had me, the only lift that actually had me like that I put a lot more focus into was actually deadlifts.
Mhm.
That was it in terms of like my setup, but everything else, it was just everything felt natural.
And your deadlift was 3 times your body weight.
Yes.
So that was freaking amazing. That was great.
That was, yeah, I was really happy with my deadlift. I was
Yeah.
really happy with it.
It looked real good. Well, it's kind of funny because Neal and I, when I saw the video, well, the one you posted, I was like, oh, come on, bro. You could have gotten 675, but you said you did 676. You didn't get it.
I didn't get it. I'm going to post that video.
Now, which lift was that on the 676?
That was my very last deadlift attempt.
That was the third one.
That was the third.
Okay, so the 656 was your second?
Yes.
Oh, so you did quite a significant jump between them two.
I did. So my starting deadlift, originally I put it at 630.
Okay.
I walked in that morning, I was like, be a little bit more reserved about this. So I went to 617.
Oh, okay.
And 617 felt easy.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what, I'm going to make a bigger jump.
Yeah.
And just not waste any time.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's when I jumped to 656. That felt pretty good. I think in my heart of hearts, if I would have done a couple pounds less, like a kilo less,
Yeah, like 674.
I think I would have got it.
Yeah,
I think I
yeah,
would've
yeah.
got it,
It's
honestly.
crazy how it's just that.
It's just 2 pounds.
2 pounds.
Right? Just 2
Yeah.
pounds,
Takes.
right? That's all it takes.
Yeah.
But I think I would have been able to wrestle with it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't willing to wrestle with the 676. And honestly, out of all the lifts in the competition, I'd say I was most proud of that lift, to be
Good.
completely honest. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and it sounds weird to say. The thing that I'm most proud of is that I didn't try to grind it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew at the point, like, my body was like, yeah, we're out of here. We're done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I stopped. So,
Not worth it.
yeah, exactly. So it to me, that was like my most proud lift of the entire competition. But I'm happy with how everything else went.
Yeah, because the risk to reward there wasn't worth it. Right?
No.
So it's not like if let's say you were in a situation where it was, let's say, an international meet, and let's say it was the difference between you getting $100,000 and not. That's a significant,
Way different.
motivation, right?
Yes.
That's vastly different. In that case, you're like, okay, you're gonna challenge it,
I would
right?
go for it, yeah. But in that case, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
It was first competition back. I didn't want to leave the competition feeling salty about it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, or being upset with myself for anything I did in the competition and during the prep. So the fact that I came out of the competition, came out of the prep, everything felt good. I'm happy with how exactly how everything went.
Yeah, you said you were still pretty sore. I mean, the next Sunday, and even today on Monday.
Yeah, my nervous system is shot to shit.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
Definitely still got some fatigue. Like my body's sore, my core sore, my back is sore. Like everything feels sore, but it's not that kind of soreness where you're like hating life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
that
good.
1 rep max, I mean, it's not something that you do
Mm-mm.
on a regular basis, or you shouldn't do on a regular basis.
No. I maybe do a 1 rep max once a year.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Shit, I can't even remember the last time I tried a 1 rep max.
Yeah. It's not worth it.
Yeah, it's not
You know,
worth
it's not
it.
worth it
Yeah.
most of the time. I like 3 rep maxes or 5 rep maxes, but 1 rep max, that's for if I'm feeling hella good that day.
Yeah, yeah.
So was the first rep of each lift basically like just get something on the board? Make sure you complete this thing.
Yeah. I kept it really reserved for my
Mhm.
first attempts. Basically what was around 85% of my 1 rep.
Okay.
So I wanted to be really kind of conservative there and make sure I was comfortable with the weight. But that was also for me like a way to kind of tell how my nervous system was doing for that day. So 551 on my first squat felt like shit. I know I'm in for a long haul.
Yeah.
But my first squat felt like a warm up, to be honest with you.
Good.
Because all my jumps were actually big in the competition. So I went from 551 to 573 on my second attempt. That felt really good. And so I was like, okay, I can like be conservative or I can make a little bit of a bigger jump, beat out my old squat. That's when I made the jump from 573 to 601. And surprisingly went pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, what's your plan going forward? Are you going to try to see how much more of a ceiling you can hit?
Yeah. So my goal for the competition was I was originally chasing 1700.
Okay.
I missed the mark, but it's fine. So I'm going to compete again. I probably won't be competing again this year. I think I'm just going to take a little bit of time, scale it back, just kind of focus on areas that I feel like need improvement, and then go into competing next year. But my approach will be similar, but not the same.
Do you want to go at the same weight class?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to stick around the same weight class. My weight's typically around 205-ish, so I'm really not that far off. So to do a water cut it's not that hard. It's not
Yeah, you're not. Yeah.
so it's not that far off. So I'll stay in the 90 kilos. If I do move up, it wouldn't be planned. It would just be like, all right, this is what I got for this now.
Was that the first time you've had to do like a big weight cut and then, refeed and then try to do something that's high performance? Because like if it's the first time you do it, you don't really know how your body's going to truly respond.
Right. So I did a water cut the last competition I was at, but my water cut wasn't as big. Where in the last competition I did, to give context, I was also fatter.
Oh,
to be honest, so I had more water weight on me, or I had more ability to lose more water weight.
Okay.
So that water cut was extremely easy, super quick. Wasn't really a challenge. Before I got into this water cut, I did some research, make sure I was doing it properly, make sure I had my proportions right. The biggest concern was the refeed. Absolutely was a refeed, and so make sure I had a lot of carbohydrates actually. Got a lot of proteins in. Had a shit ton of fluids, a lot of electrolytes. I must have had like 15 grams of salt that day, just to make sure I was refeeding enough. And so I always had like something going. But that refeed is what my biggest concern was. Yeah.
Neal and I were chatting last week about performance ceiling. And I think we hear that all the time in terms of athletics and athletes, that so-and-so has a low floor and a really high ceiling. Scouts are always kind of referring to that as far as when they're looking to draft a player or bring a player on, what is the ceiling potential for this? And that's something that we were thinking about. Do athletes really achieve their ceiling, right? Is it something that you can put a number on, so to speak, right?
I think that's tough to say. It's kind of tough to say because powerlifting is a sport where you can kind of slowly, incrementally kind of work up. But I would say there's probably absolutely a ceiling. It's just more so the matter of time and process that you take to get there.
Right.
It's mostly time, I would say, if anything else.
So your next competition, then you're going to definitely try to get the 1700 that you were looking to get this time around.
I'm confident I'll get 1700 next one. I'm actually going to switch my deadlift to sumo next competition.
Are you?
Just for shits and giggles.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I did conventional this competition. I just wanted to stick to conventional and just focus on that. Now that I've kind of done it, I'm like, okay, I want to see how I perform doing a sumo deadlift. Because classically, for me at least, my sumo deadlifts are actually better than my conventional for my proportions and so on and so forth. So like the best I ever did on the sumo was 660 for 4 reps. And I've never done that on a conventional. The most I ever got on a conventional was 700 for a single. So I think switching my deadlift style might bode to be a little bit more advantageous for me. So I'm going to try that on the next one.
Yeah, because the sumo, number one, less distance to travel, but you have that nice wide base, and that's what that sumo, I think, really adds. Conventional, you have a narrower base of support, so you have, in reality, less stability in relation to the lever of the bar, right?
Yes.
So when you get that sumo, that gives you much more stability through the entire system.
Yes.
So I think a lot of people think of the sumo more from a distance traveled, but I look at a sumo as more of, okay, you got the lever, and where's your foot position and hip position in relation to the lever of the bar?
Yes.
And that's the difference maker for me, not the distance traveled.
Absolutely.
Seems like if you have pretty wide hips too, sumo's a little bit better. Like for someone that's maybe a little narrower but has super long arms, maybe then they need to go conventional.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people try to force sumo because a lot of the best lifters do sumo, right? Like some of the strongest people in their weight class tend to do sumo, with the exception of like Russell Ori or guys like that. But people don't really pay attention to what their anatomical structures are, the proportions for femur length. Some people will see like guys like Dan Green who goes like super wide on the sumo.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Dan Green's also flexible and mobile as for somebody his size. And so people don't really know exactly what range to work in. So like it's like when you're doing sumo, it's a lot of tinkering. Because I used to go super wide, but then I was like, no, my hips don't feel good. So when I went more narrow, I'm like, shit, okay, this is
a little bit better
for me. Yeah.
Well, what's his name just did 1,025 or 50, something like that in the sumo. He just did it this past weekend the weekend before. I forget his name, but he just did 1,025. And I thought, to pick 1,000 pounds up off the ground is just
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, and I think what's interesting is even in that sumo position, some people make comments, okay, well, you know, you did it sumo versus conventional, but it's still 1,000 pounds.
Exactly.
It's still 1,000
It's
pounds.
like, unless you're going to go pick up a 1,000 pound, shut up and sit down somewhere.
Right?
Yeah.
It's still 1,000 pounds.
Exactly.
The dude put his hands around a bar and lifted it off the ground. Holy
Can't say
shit.
shit against that.
It's like when people do partial reps, right?
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, oh, okay, well, it was a partial rep. Okay, if the dude or the female is still holding 3-4 times their body weight, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yes.
Right? When
Yes.
you're talking about the ability to lift 3 to 4 times your body weight, that's strong as f-
Yeah.
there.
That's where you got to respect it. It was interesting because I was seeing like a lot of different deadlift styles, even at the competition.
Oh, did you?
Half
Okay.
people were doing conventional, half people were doing sumo. It's just you find whatever you feel strongest.
Yeah, because I think instinctively, as you tinker around with your positions, you're going to find that sweet spot.
Yes.
And that sweet spot is what I think we're all after when we're doing this type of stuff, right?
Absolutely.
And so your body understands itself, your brain knows what's going on. So when you find it, then that's what you stick with because that's your thing.
Absolutely.
Well, I bet your sumo your posturing would look closer to your squat too.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Because the way I do sumo is like my stance width isn't super wide, but when I actually pull the slack out of the bar, my positioning is pretty
Upright.
Yeah. That's where I think the advantages will come in for me is just that my positioning is going to be a lot better and I'm not traveling as long
Yeah.
in terms of bar path. But the fact I can get more leg drive, more quad drive out of it is it's a game changer for me.
So I know as athletes, athletes want to see what their ceiling is. Now let's talk about that in regards to the general population, right? I think the vast majority of people don't even give a shit about finding out what their ceiling is,
No.
right?
Of course not.
Which is kind of a shame.
Yeah.
Because think about how much untapped potential every human has.
Yes.
And for me, it's like the lack of desire to even want to kind of see what your ceiling is disappointing for me.
Yeah.
When I see that in people.
Yeah. Especially if you see somebody, if you're working with somebody and like you can see like they got something to them, right? Yeah. They're pretty strong at this or they're good at this. Like I want to see where they can get to. But like that's the thing that does suck is like we want it for them. So it's just it's like, damn, man, I know you can kick ass. I know you can do good. They're like, not really looking for that.
Well, because ultimately, humans are just trying to be efficient.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So
very much so.
Like, I don't need to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm good right here.
Yeah.
There isn't really anything in the modern lifestyle anymore where you have to push yourself that hard.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean the
You don't have
comforts.
to chase anything,
Yeah, the creature comforts that we have now are, is just it's too convenient. So we don't need to. I mean, foraging and hunting is just going to the grocery store and going to Costco and looking for that piece of meat that attracts you eyeball wise. I mean, that's our hunting right now, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's it. We don't even have any concept of what it is to actually go out for 8-10 miles looking for a food source. Right? I mean, we get annoyed if we got to go 15 minutes to the grocery store. We really do. Like,
and then wait in line.
Yeah, and then wait in line, right? Right? It's true, right? I mean, we have it really good.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just bottom line.
Was it? We're in a day of great comfort and excess, honestly.
Yeah.
Everything's comfortable, it's quick, and everything's in excess. So it's like, it's tough for the average person to go, there's a challenge and I want to go at it. I think the average person goes like, there's a challenge, not sure how I want to approach that, or even if I want to approach it. People are complacent. We're complacent creatures.
Yeah. As a whole, I mean, I think we still look at things. I think most people like to see other humans achieving phenomenal things or extraordinary things.
Absolutely.
But even at the rudimentary element of that thing that we see somebody do, most people don't even want to try to see, even at the basic level, what it's like to experience that.
Yeah.
Right? Like we see people slacklining between hot air balloons, right? But yet most people won't even try a an indoor slack line that's only 2 feet off the floor.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't need to be slacklining between 2 hot air balloons, but shit, give a slack line a try that's just 2 feet off the floor. See what it's like.
Yes.
Right? But even at that rudimentary level, most people are like, I don't even want to do that.
So here's a question, actually. Do you think the average person, if we're in a day and age and a time where we welcome challenges more as society, as humans, do you think that you'd have a lot more people that are a lot stronger and in better positions? Or do you think we'd still kind of fall subsequent to our habits now?
I think overall, people would be stronger. I mean, you're still going to have
Those outliers.
lazy ass people.
Yeah, of
no
course.
matter what. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be at least half,
Yes.
or maybe a little less than half. I mean, now it's got to be like
The majority.
75% of people at least.
Well, I mean, remember the story, when the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock, right? And they established that community. What was Captain Smith, what did he say? He said, if you don't work, you don't eat.
Yeah.
So obviously he said that for a reason, because obviously even in that time when you knew you had to work for your shit, there were still people in that group that didn't want to work.
Yes.
Right. So it's like you said, there's always going to be that sector, that fragmentation that is like, I don't want to do anything. But yeah, I think if we lived in an era or a time where physical accomplishments were really revered, so to speak, and gave you a higher status, then yeah, I think you would see a lot different society.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd see a society that was much stronger and more physically capable and resilient and not so fragile.
Yeah.
Because, I think in today's society, especially more in industrialized countries, I think we got way too much fragility and not enough resiliency. And not just physical, but emotional and mental too.
Yeah. It's kind of like I mentioned, like when I was in a competition, like my focus was this. It was a stare, like close pinpoint. I don't think that's a special, like, talent. I don't think that's something necessarily special. But I think the difference comes with, different individuals. Is like who's able to, first of all, hone in on that focus, and how long can that focus actually last? Because nowadays, focus lasts for what, 15 seconds?
Yeah.
Maybe, right? Like everything's so fast, everything's so quick. Even videos on social media, it's like, if you're not seeing the shit in 10 seconds, I'm on to the next one. So it's like everything's so much faster. I don't think the average person knows how to focus for any meaningful amount of time.
Well, I think what you were talking about earlier about how you felt like you were just in the gym.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think a lot of people have the same focus and intent when they go lift. Like when you go lift, it's practice for you. It's like your time of meditation.
Yes.
So all you did was do the same thing. Or someone that may go lift, maybe go train for this thing, maybe they don't put themselves in that same mindset and practice that mindset day in and day out. So they go into the competition and they revert back to their practice, because that's usually what happens when you get really nervous or anxious. You revert back to what you do in your training and your practice. So they don't have this competition mindset or have this intent when they're training.
Yeah.
So they can't really tap into it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Almost like that killer instinct. Yeah. And when we think of athletes, you can always kind of tell when somebody has a killer instinct versus they're a little shy of that, right? It's that old adage of it ain't worth winning if you can't win big, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of that. That's where you see it, right? And you see it in coaches, too, when some coaches complain about having the score run up on them. For me, it's kind of like, well, then don't let it happen.
Yeah.
Don't bitch about it. If once the individuals or the teams are out on the field or out on the pitch, shit happens.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to get your score run up, then prepare better.
Yes.
Find better talent, whatever it is. But that's on you. That's not on the other team. That's not on the other individual. They're just doing what they practice to do, right? And if they have a killer instinct and you don't, well, then that's a massive difference.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, what's crazy too is at the professional level of anything, let's just say the NBA, every guy there has a killer instinct. Everyone, to get there, you need to have it, because they completely dominated
their minor levels.
Entire, yeah. It's just that the top guys have even more. Like they just want it more and more and more and more.
Right. Yeah, it's that Jordan Kobe killer instinct, and then everybody else's killer instinct is just below that.
But their killer instinct is still like ridiculous compared to the normal college athlete.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because the hunger never went away.
Yeah.
If anything, the hunger grew over time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes that's the difference. It's kind of that complacency thing, right? You have that hunger, but once you're fed, is it enough, or do you have hunger to do more, to do better, to get
right?
Whatever the case is. So with those kind of athletes, it's so admirable to see that kind of thing, because they're the epitome of it's just not enough.
Yeah.
I can do better. I can get better. I can improve on this. I need to hone in and find ways to do.
Yeah, I think it's when we look at somebody like Tom Brady, I think that's what keeps bringing him back.
Mm-hmm.
7 rings is great, but Tom wants an 8th.
Yes.
You get greedy, right? And other athletes are like, I've had 1 or I've gotten 2. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like I've reached the pinnacle.
Mm-hmm.
I've reached the top. But then others, they reach that pinnacle and they want to continue to see how often they can reach that pinnacle.
Yes. It's the same thing as finding your ceiling.
Yeah, right.
You don't know unless you actually try. So those are the people who keep trying and trying and trying and trying and trying. And then they actually may hit that point or they may not. And then it's like, you know what? I did what I could.
Yeah.
I gave them all.
Well, because, finding your ceiling, you're running that fine line of getting injured. Because it's going to, you can't find your ceiling without walking that precipice.
Yeah.
Right?
There's always a risk associated.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
For everything.
For everything.
Yes.
So it's just up to you whether or not you're willing to take that risk.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what makes people the elite in whatever they do, whether it's physical or in the boardroom or whatever it is, in your practice, your office. It's the ability to look at a risk and say, fuck it, I'm going to do it.
Yes.
And yes, is the possibility of failure strong? Of course. But if you don't take that risk, you'll never be at the elite level.
Yeah.
Because that's what it takes.
And being okay with failing. I think that's like such a monumental thing. There's people who have a phobia of it, where it's just like, no, like if you fail, that's not a bad thing. That's not really even a failure. You just found what you can do at that point in time. Then from there, it's game time. Then it's, can you improve on that?
Yeah, and failure comes if you do it again.
Yes.
And you did the same shit. That's failure.
Yes.
But if you fail at something, then if you step back and think about, okay, what did I do? And what do I do differently next time?
Yes.
Right? So that way you don't repeat those same things that got you to that point of failure to begin with, right?
Yes.
So then it's sitting back and going, okay, let me re-engineer what I did, reevaluate, and make some changes, whether it be significant or subtle, maybe even just a subtle change that you need to make.
Yeah, but those subtle changes can make a huge difference.
Big time,
Yeah.
big time.
Well, the other thing, too, about becoming elite is sacrifice, right? So people have to think about time. Like, okay, to become elite, like I need to put this much into it.
Yeah.
But now I can't do all these other things I may want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the big. So when we talk about the general population and just avid people that like to work out all the time, and they're always chasing maxes, whether it's strength or cardio
Speed,
or whatever
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
So for them, they want to become elite in their own way, right? They're not professionals, but how much time can you really devote without diminishing everything else you do?
Yeah.
From a professional standpoint, we always hear the athletes to say, I missed out on my family, right? I missed out on watching my kids grow up and blah, 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 blah. But in a general population setting, there are still people that do that.
Totally, yeah.
And not just working at the gym, but work in their career, right? They want to be so elite and so top of their game that, you do have to make a sacrifice. And then it's the thing of, okay, are you willing to accept the consequences of making those sacrifices?
Yes.
And you have to be good with it. I think it's when you do it and you're not good with the consequences, then don't do that.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're willing to accept it and say, okay, if I am a workaholic, so to speak, in the boardroom or at my office, that's going to come with consequences. I'm going to miss my kid's piano recital. I'm going to miss this and that.
Yeah.
Well, 20 years down the road, your kids hate you, right?
Yeah.
They're bitter, resentful. You may be top notch in your field, but you have kids that they don't even know who you are, right? But for some people, it's worth it. I mean, we see it, right? We see that some people are willing to make those sacrifices, and it's okay. At the time, they may regret it later.
Right. So that's a big aspect right there.
Yeah.
Is how you feel over time, but also like people actually sometimes don't even know what they're sacrificing.
Yes, that's very true.
Which is so weird because but that's what happens when you have tunnel vision. When you're hyper focused, sacrifices don't really exist in that realm. So it's just like, well, this is what I want to get to. This is the only thing that matters. And then they go for it. And then later it's like, yeah, well, again, your kids don't like you. They don't want to spend time with you. Or maybe you made the sacrifice of doing something and you got hurt because maybe that sacrifice was much greater than you thought it was at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So recognizing those sacrifices makes a huge difference, because I think that's where the average person goes, not a sacrifice, a little bit too much for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It helps too if your support structure around you understands that too.
Yes.
So that's a big assistance there too.
Mm-hmm.
So that if you are that type of personality and you're doing something like that, if your support system around you, if the people around you also understand and they're good with it, that's a big help. It's when the people around you don't understand what you're trying to do and they just are like, that's when you can kind of run into real problems, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because as you were training, then Leanne's supporting you in the way you train, right?
Yeah.
And so she's your support system, but she understands what you're trying to accomplish.
Yes. By the way, big shout out to Land for helping me through that. Because I mean, like, especially and I thanked her like a few times, because for the last week for prepping for the competition, I was like, hey, could just make sure I don't do some stupid shit, right? Like when I went to dehydrate, she went with it.
Okay.
Just to make sure, like I'm just gonna keep an eye on you, make sure nothing goes wrong.
Yeah.
Like when we went, like she was there with me the whole way. So the support system definitely does matter when you're going towards a goal. Mm-hmm. I think people get more discouraged when they don't have anybody in their corner going. Yeah.
I mean, we all need that support system. So yeah, the more people around you that understand what you're trying to achieve, the better. I think the easier it's going to be to achieve those things.
Absolutely.
That's a big thing. That's a big thing. We kind of joked about earlier off camera about the little meme, and this kind of gets into that whole ceiling thing in a different way. But the meme that they show a guy that's kind of yoked out, but it says, you teach a man to lift and they'll lift occasionally, but give a man body dysmorphia and he'll train all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we were joking about it, but it's true.
Yeah.
There's so much truth to that. I know the first time I saw that meme, I was like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like I put myself right in there.
Oh, yeah.
In high school and college,
mm-hmm.
that was me. Like I was like,
what's the average person's average gym goer's goal? I want to get as big and as shredded as I can possibly get.
Right.
Or as strong as I can possibly get or whatever. That comes partially, as much as people want to admit it or not, and I'm also guilty of this to a degree, that comes from body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like there's never enough. Even when people are like, yeah, man, you're looking good, you look great. There's like, yeah, but I can do better.
Yeah.
I can do better. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that feeds into that mentality, and that's so negative. People don't really realize how detrimental that is to your mental health.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. And then we see as a result of that, we see the eating disorders and really emotional issues that come with that. Mm-hmm. But I know of me as a kid, like, high school, college, like for me, I was, no matter how many people were like, dude, you're just, you're as wide as you are tall. And for me, it just wasn't enough, right?
Yes.
Like I'm 5'3", I've got short humeruses, short femurs. I can't physically put as much mass on as I thought I could.
Yeah.
Right? So I would look at myself in the mirror and be like, oh, I can get my arms bigger. Mm-hmm. And people are like, I don't know how much bigger. You can't put your shirts on.
Yeah.
Like, my dress shirts, I had to have custom made, right? Because you can't just go to the store because they don't make shirts for people my dimensions, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the hypertrophy that was taking place. So it was kind of like, but in my mind, I kept thinking every time I looked in the mirror, I'm like, oh, my arms are still small. My arms are still small.
Yes. I don't think people realize when you're actually pretty big or pretty built and you're not built like the average person, it sucks finding clothes. It absolutely, it sucks. Yeah. Like, I don't fit in normal jeans. I don't fit in normal tuxes. When I get fitted for tuxes, the proportions are off because I just don't have that same, kind of shape. You don't need to get as big as the person you see. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the problem comes in too, is that we as people see social media and we see these huge guys that are just like, oh my God, these dudes are jacked or strong or whatever. And then the next person goes I want to get like that. And then you also have people that are going, buy my program. You're going to get like me.
Yeah.
It's a false promise, to be honest with you. It's just a false promise.
Yeah.
So instead of working out and destroying your quality of life, trying to reach something that maybe you won't achieve, maybe you won't get there, maybe you will. Instead, look at ways to make working out improve your quality of life, make you feel better about yourself. Because what it is. We all want to feel good about ourselves. You're never going to feel good about yourself if you have body. That's never going to happen.
No, it's not, and that's the thing. But that's the thing with body dysmorphia is the fact that you envision yourself completely different than the rest of the world envisions you or sees you as. If you're suffering from body dysmorphia, yeah, you need to, number one, admit that you are suffering from that, and number two, seek professional help to bust out of that, because it's not going to put you in a good place. Not just mentally, but physically, it can create a lot of issues.
Yes.
Well, I think the same thing can go into the performance sense.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like for me, like I would chase it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Big time. So you'd want to do more. I'd do more. But it was to the point where it was detrimental. But I would also, same thing, dude. When I was trying to go at it for golf, I'd sacrifice all kinds of stuff. And I would just spend tons of time practicing. If I wasn't practicing, I was training. And then you start kind of cutting people out of your life. Like not intentionally.
Right.
But
It's just a side effect.
Yes.
It comes with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just realizing that, and you go, you know what? I probably didn't have to do all that.
Right.
As I got older, I'm like, I could have gotten the same thing or better, having more balance in my life. Still have a big emphasis on this because that's what I want to do. But you put too much importance in it, so it puts too much pressure on you, and then that's it. And then you just kind of become that, even though, like, you're not your activity.
Right. So actually, here's a question for you. When you both were at that point where you're chasing that performance or you're chasing that size or whatever the case is, where were you mentally at that point in time? Were you happy? Were you content? Were you satisfied with the way your life was? Or was it this kind of pit of emptiness that you were just trying to fill with chasing that performance or chasing that whatever?
Well, I think for me, it was 19, 20 years of age. So at that age, do you even know what happiness is or content? Do you know what being content is, right? Because at 19, 20, and even today, you get people at the age of 50, 60 years of age who are still trying to find themselves in a way, right?
Yeah.
Age is irrelevant to finding happiness and content. I think people have that misconception of saying, oh, the older I get, the more content I'll be. Not necessarily, no. I still see people that are 60 years of age that are still kind of trying to figure out who they are, what they are, what they should be doing type of thing. So yeah, at 19, 20, it's really hard to figure out, okay, I am happy with who I am. And I don't think there's a 19, 20-year-older out there that's completely happy with who they are or where they are in life. But for me, I think physically is where I put most of my demands. School-wise and everything, I didn't stress out about that, right? It's like I knew I was smart. I knew I had intelligence, blah, blah, blah. That wasn't really... And for me, it was like, I figured coming out of high school, I was like, okay, I want to be set in my career and what I'm going to do for my life by the time I'm 30. I didn't put that pressure on myself like, oh, I need to be at the age of 21, 22 in the workforce, in my career, because I had seen enough people around me that were already in their careers and miserable. Yeah. Right? So I didn't want to be in that miserable pit early.
Yes.
And luckily I haven't been, because doing what we do is what I love, right? Yeah. So I at least have that going too. So, but yeah, at 19, 20, yeah, it was more just physically, I wasn't happy with where I could have been, right? Or where I thought I could be. But everything else, I was perfect. I think I was in a good state of mind with.
I got a question to ask after. Go ahead.
Yeah, like my family, my friends, I had good relationships. I'd say that I probably tied too much of like your emotions with how you performed, right? So if I didn't play well, obviously you're upset.
Yeah.
But I would go, all right, I need to go work harder, do this. So then it would carry over. I guess, you just get too caught up in it. Yeah. At that point. But I didn't necessarily, I don't know. I was pretty young too. So I was like 21. Okay. By the time I was pretty much like, all right, 22. But when I decided like, all right, I'm done with golf. I'm going to get into something else. And I've exhausted everything I could. Not quite there, and it's going to take a whole lot more. And possibly, even with that whole lot more, I may not have made it. And So at that point, I realized like this isn't going to make me happy to having this lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I need to do something different.
Okay, that makes sense. And so my follow-up question is your feelings of negativity at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that fed into that cycle of always trying to kind of chase it, in the sense of you didn't feel like where you were at was good enough, so that negativity fed into you putting more effort into it?
Oh yeah,
Chasing the dragon,
that's
if you will.
yeah, always chasing the dragon.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I mean, that was the reason why I was doing 2-a-day workouts,
Mhm.
was because of that, right? You know, it was the whole, well, if one workout's good, 2 a day must be fantastic,
Yeah,
right? You know, and in college, I was in Pittsburgh, right outside of Pittsburgh, and so I was going to Powerhouse Gym, was my
Yeah.
gym of choice, right? So, and the guys at that gym, there were some pretty big dudes in there. We had Mr. Pennsylvania, Anthony Munoz's cousin worked out there.
Okay.
So, and this guy, Gary, who was a competitive power lifter, specializing in bench. This dude was just, oh my God, 600-pound bench, like nothing. And for his size, you would never, just really broad chested, just boom. Barrel chested, I should say, just crushing bench, right?
Yeah.
So these are the guys I'm working out with, right? So of course, me who thinking, okay, I'm not big enough,
Yeah.
working out with these other dudes, and I'm like, okay, so this is what I'm envisioning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never mind, these guys are 5'10", 6'4", 6'3". I'm 5'3".
Mhm.
Like, it just is what it is, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, but it was that inability at the time to just realize physically who I was.
Yeah.
And who I am.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, it did feed into that. And it was the whole thing of, okay, go work out in the morning, put my hour and a half in, and then go back in the afternoon, put another hour and a half in.
Mhm.
And to look back and go, I wasn't even getting paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's the crazy part about it.
Yeah.
And there was nothing monetarily that was ever going to come out of it.
Mhm.
Right. I wasn't willing to do the PEDs to maybe get on stage. But even then, we know that there's not much money in that either.
No, not after
Right?
you add up the cost.
Not after you add up the cost.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
what are you really winning, right? What do you, you may win a trophy, but the monetary value isn't there, right? So really, what are you doing? So, but yeah, it did for me. It fed me big time.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think specifically with performance, right? The negative feelings you get from losing,
Mhm.
I think it's positive though, right? Because it pushes you
Yes.
to work harder. I think where you get caught up is where, like, looking back now, I wasn't working hard at the right things.
Right.
So spending too much time on the wrong things, and I put all my effort into the physical,
Yeah.
right? But not enough into the mental side of things.
Mhm.
Well, now, like, if I go out there and play, I don't practice anymore. I don't play anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm free out there. I don't care.
Yes.
And and every now and then I'll go out there and I'll still shoot a score that I might have shot in college.
Mhm.
And I don't practice at all.
Mhm.
But having that mindset now where I'm more carefree because I've experienced more life
Mhm.
and realized, like, hey, this is a game,
Yeah.
This really doesn't have that much of importance,
Mhm.
In the grand scheme of things. If I could have had that back then, yeah, maybe it could have been different. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I do think that the negativity can be used in a positive way,
Right.
for
Absolutely.
sure.
Yeah.
As long as it's like you have a good strategy behind it.
Yeah. I feel like that's always a big question when it comes to performance and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Is at least what I notice, I perform better when I don't have a negative association with what it is that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Climbing, for example. I love to climb,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to sit and be like, oh man, I need to go after this. Like, it's cool to progress and it's cool to see if I get better or not.
Mhm.
And I feel like hella good when I accomplish something, but at the same time, it doesn't impact my enjoyment of what it is.
Yeah.
So I feel like most people who tend to do pretty good at whatever extracurricular or professional activity, they probably enjoy the process
Mhm.
and they have the right amount of like that negative to positive kind of feedback,
Mhm.
or the right ratio, I should say, for them to perform well and still kind of have fun with it.
Yeah, because to be good at something, man, you have to be obsessed with it.
Yeah,
Oh, you do.
absolutely.
You do.
Absolutely.
You have
A
to.
weird obsession.
Yeah.
There has to be. I mean, when I played billiards competitively, it was a full-time job.
Yeah.
So I worked my full-time job, and then I shot billiards well over 40 hours a week. It was an obsession to the point of I would literally wake up and realize I just dreamt about scenarios on a billiard table.
Yeah.
I mean, that is
Yeah.
up.
Yes.
But I could clearly remember I would be dreaming about, here's a scenario, here's a layout on a billiard table. What do I do? And I could literally dream about what I would do, where I would need to hit the cue ball, where I would need to hit the target ball, what kind of leave I was leaving after. And then I wake up and I'm like, did I just dream about billiards? Holy shit balls, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. But that's the obsession that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
That is it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the obsession that I had when I got into really playing billiards with a purpose, right? As opposed to going when I first went, it was just shit to do, right? And my buddy Jeremy's all like, look, you're going to learn to play this game. I'm going to teach you how to play it. Okay, cool. And then once he taught me how to play the game, started playing the game, then it became an obsession.
Yeah.
It wasn't just something I just wasted my time with.
Mhm.
But then I just flipped that switch and it became a big obsession.
Yes.
Yeah, you just need to be able to go like, okay, I'm obsessed with it for this amount of time, and then when you're out of it, do your own thing. Just be who you are.
You just said the key right there.
That's it.
That's
you just have
the
to
key.
be who you are.
Yeah.
I think people lose sight of that. Who am I outside of this thing? People get so hyper focused on
For
like,
sure.
I am my sport to a degree, or I am my activity.
Or your
Like, no.
profession, right?
Yeah.
Or being a trainer.
Yeah. And like that's what we had that identify as.
Yeah.
But it's just like, is that you or is it a byproduct of who you are and something that you enjoy doing? So as long as it's just a byproduct of things that you enjoy, I think people tend to do better, or at least stay in it for longer, as opposed to someone who's like super obsessed and they just nothing else exists. It's just that bubble and like there's nothing out here. It's just all black. Yeah,
For sure. I've been there.
and it kind of sucks.
So, like when you go, like we get that when we're watching people move, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't. I've gotten better at it the last few years of turning it off. But there was a long time where I couldn't turn that off, right? But the last few years I had much better. What I just I've been able to click, turn that off. If somebody's walking in front of me, I don't go, oh my god, and obsess. Well, this is what I see taking place. Blah blah.
Yeah.
I was finally able to get away from that because, to be honest with you, it kind of drove me nuts in the fact that I couldn't shut it off.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm not at work. I just need to just be me. And I don't want to, if I'm sitting at the airport, I don't want to be watching people going, well, fuck, this and this. Oh, I see this and this and that. No, I just want to be at the airport, waiting to get on my plane, just relax.
Yeah.
Right. And don't obsess about that stuff. But it's hard.
Did it take you a long time to come around to that?
Yeah, it did. It did. Yeah. I mean, I know when we used to travel, we'd be like, hey, look at that person, look at this person. You live it.
Yeah.
You live it, right? Because I think in some respects, you're trying to also stay on top of your game.
Yeah.
Right? I think in some ways you are trying to stay on top of your game. And not that I'm not doing it now. It's just, I don't need to do it all the damn time.
Yes.
I mean, you don't have to judge other people while you're
Right.
doing it.
Yeah, I think that's the other too,
Yeah.
right? Because you kind of say, okay, what is that person doing to get to that position? Why have they allowed that to take place? Let's be honest. People don't know why they allowed it to take place.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing.
That's true.
There's they did this to themselves. They knew better. No, they didn't know. They had no idea. That's why you learn that when you're working with clients, because you're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. You start explaining stuff to them and they're like, oh. And they're like, I had no idea.
Yeah. You know what you know.
They just
don't know what you
know. Oh, they're just living life.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. And so they know I'm living life. I'm doing stuff. And now here's some consequences as a result of what I've been doing. Okay. Here, let's try to figure out how to reverse that, blah, blah, blah. But when you can't shut it off, I think there's that party that says they should have known better. And they don't know better because, like you said, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's why I don't like the term corrective exercise.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're trying to, all right, we're trying to correct, instead of like, hey, why don't we just help them move better?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just help them get stronger, more efficient.
Right. And give them some awareness of what's taking place throughout their day.
Yeah.
Because if we can give them that awareness, then hopefully they can go and take some steps to counteract that stuff because they just didn't know before. So if you say, hey, take 10 minutes and do this every day. Okay, cool. All right. And give them a low expectation. Say just 10 minutes. Because most people will be like, okay, I can do 10 minutes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not 1 hour, where people are automatically going to shut off
Yeah.
because they're like, 1 hour. Well, where the hell am I going to find 1 hour in my crazy packed day?
Yeah.
Most people if it can spare 10 minutes. Most people realize,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I can do 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think you give them a much more achievable, realistic expectation, then they're probably going to be more apt to do that, what you're asking them to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because ultimately the world would be better off if everyone could raise their physical baseline
Yeah.
rather than chasing their potential.
I agree.
Raise the floor, not wonder what their ceiling is.
Yeah.
But let's elevate the floor.
Yeah.
We don't want people to have a low floor. And that's unfortunately what we're seeing today is people are just way low floors.
Yeah.
You know, and so let's raise that up and then see what we can do beyond that. But yeah, it's a big deal. That's a big thing. That's a great point right there.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. And until next episode, be good to each other. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and whatever platform you're on, either Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, please, if you could leave a review, we'd appreciate that. If you have any questions that we can answer for you, be sure to leave those in the comments also.
If you're looking for more information on our education, our products, please go to www.stickmobility.com.
And also hit that subscribe button to that YouTube channel. And don't forget our live Instagram classes 3 times a week. If you want to join in, grab your sticks and hit that 45-minute class. Well, you can order, you might have to just order a new arm, huh?
I think so.
Yeah. Get that just that part.
From the side. I got to check these guns out here.